Welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H.
Oh, hi, Ryan Hamann H. I'm Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q.
Are you also maybe a little bit out of ideas after our big push last week?
Yeah, it was a little, the word push is a great euphemism because it did feel like passing a kidney stone to come up with 50 ideas. I did, after seeing it all tweeted out, I was like, boy, it really makes me wish we could have gotten 100 ideas each, but I don't think my brain had it in me, and I don't think the show length had it in it.
Yeah, I think we rounded out to a nice kind of amount of time, keeping it under 2 hours. I think it turned out really well. I was really pleased with what we ended up coming up with. But twice as much, I think we would have gotten very tired by the end of it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think in terms of all of the special episodes or the little things we've tried in the past, that one will forever stand out and be something that I feel proud of.
We have 7 or 8 episodes left. So, if we could do 50 each last week, then surely we can pull through for the remaining 7 or 8. So.
You'd like to think.
Let's do our best. But I think we've been reinvigorated by the creativity last week. We've refound the purpose of the show, and I think that'll inspire us going forward. Hopefully all the listeners at home enjoyed that as well. As of the time of recording, the episode just came out today, so we haven't gotten a lot of feedback on that yet, but hopefully people will listen and enjoy.
Yeah, if you listen to the show, tweet us your favorite one of the one-line ideas or your top 3 or something like that. I guess it's a list of 100. You could be able to extract a top 3 with relative ease.
Well, let's get to our individual video game pitches for the day. Why don't you go first this time around?
Yeah, so I had to search our website because 200 episodes in, that's where we're at. I had to search our website to find out if there was any mention of this in the past, and there wasn't. I'm surprised. So I'm pulling in some inspiration from a show that I completed while, in the past year, actually in the past couple months, Battlestar Galactica. I realize that this, I'm sure there's been attempts at video games of it before, but the modern Battlestar Galactica, I think, would make a really compelling fusion between maybe FTL and a narrative or 4X strategy game, a Crusader of Kings, if you will, where you're having these generational people on a ship. You're also trying to keep a fleet together and manage things like resources. And you're constantly on the move from the Cylons, trying to find out what course is going to take you home on a potentially very long journey.
All right, starting the clock. So I might be a bit useless on this one because I've never actually seen Battlestar Galactica before. But if there's like a way to kind of boil down what it does differently than other sci-fi, kind of like, Star Trek kind of grounds its sci-fi and almost kind of like naval. And so if you can kind of wrap your mind around, ships and the types of naval warfare that they would do on actual, giant frigates and stuff like that, then you can kind of understand the mechanics of Star Trek anyways. And so, what is it that sets Battlestar apart from the other sci-fis?
It's a good question. I think, to me, some of the standout things for Battlestar is the series. There is no port of call. There is no renewal for the good guys in the series. It is when a ship is lost, when people are lost, they are gone. So you do have those kind of roguelike mechanics kind of at play, or at least the telltale. When a character is gone, someone will remember that kind of mechanics. Next, you have your Crusader of Kings, like there's a president on one of the ships, and maybe not everybody's happy with that president, so they want to hold an election. So you have some political, social things you're dealing with. And then finally, almost, I feel like designed for a video game, the Cylons, the bad guys in Battlestar Galactica, they essentially, when one of them dies, another one flies off an assembly line of that exact same model with all of its memories. So you have a renewable enemy who is also potentially the nemesis system at work. So the enemy is learning and getting better about you and your tactics. You have no way to really go and make your ship all cleaned up and polished again. You have to kind of repair it with the resources that you have along the way.
So in Battlestar, did they ever attack these assembly lines to kind of interrupt the flow? Because it sounds like blasting the individual robots isn't going to do that much to kind of quell the force.
Yes, so there is this concept of, gosh, if I could remember the name, I think it's called I don't know if it's an assembly ship or what. Gosh, I should know this. But yeah, there is the concept of there are some ships within the Cylon fleet that when you die, your brain is transferred back to that ship and they print a new one of those. If you die far enough away from that ship, you're not coming back. If that ship blows up and you're too far away from the next closest ship that will print you a fresh body, you're also gone. So I do think there is kind of a interesting long-term war of attrition. You could win through the attrition war.
Interesting. So it's kind of like the balance between X-Wings and TIE fighters, where TIE fighters will kind of vastly outnumber X-Wings, but the TIE fighters really aren't suitable for any kind of long-range conflict, or, they're very short-range fighters. And so all the X-Wings really need to do is kind of lure them out a little bit farther than they're really designed to go. And then they're at the disadvantage no matter their numbers.
Right.
So the Cylon regeneration is kind of like a one-for-one thing. It's not like a hive mind where the knowledge and experience that a Cylon gains is shared across kind of the entire network.
Right. It's actually super interesting. So there's 12 different models of Cylon. So this actually works well for a video game too. You only have to model 5 or 12 bad guys. The models will share their models will share memories within the same model, and there can be multiple copies of a model. So there might be, and they literally get called by number. So there might be 20 or even 100 different 6s in rotation. The 6s all generally share the same memories. The 6s are all, but they can all collect individualistic experiences and share it amongst the 6s. That being said, when a 6 dies too far away, it will not be able to add its experiences back to the collective. So I think what's interesting, right, is do you remember the game Frostpunk from about a year or so ago? Maybe it's a couple of years ago. I think the way that Frostpunk, I remember losing my first Frostpunk run, and they're like, hey, you suck. We're just banishing you to the cold, because they didn't like the decisions I was making, I guess, as the leader. I think that there's a way to kind of lose the fleet that way, right? Where if you could enact policies, and the show has to, of hey, are we going to do military rule? Are we going to try and uphold a civilian government? Are we going to order people to work in food processing so that the fleet has food? So you have these kind of political policy decisions to make to keep people alive, safe, happy, that sort of stuff. And maybe those things are not always possible together. And then you have let's say you enact those policies, now you have can you sufficiently gather water and food and nutrients and stuff along the way, and fuel. And then you're dealing with the third, which is the enemies. So it's interesting. It's like if you did a 4X grand strategy game, but you made it literally, 24 ships and really one big defense ship and 24 little ships around the fleet, that maybe you make them specialized units that are doing these things.
It would be interesting if, I don't know if this is a thing in Battlestar, I suspect not, but since this, it seems like the space between units and these kind of central hub ships is important. If there was a way for you to drive a ship in between, it's almost like a plow that creates tears in space-time. And so you can create artificial distance that, whatever it is, like a reverse wormhole or something, to make two spaces that are close together actually seem farther apart. So almost like Jezebel or something, you're kind of segmenting the battlefield and cutting people off from the necessary respawn resources.
I think that's cool. There is a concept that I think works well with that called they're faster than light travel. They just call it jumping.
Mm-hmm.
When they do a jump, they will often play tricks with their jump drive. So they're like, we're gonna jump in some fighters that look vulnerable, then we're gonna jump them out and replace them with the huge fighters. So I think that there's really cool like opportunities for planning out a battle before, like one that you're opting to go into. And so we could pull into the bridge and actually let you, they have a like figurine station on the ship with little models where they're like, okay, we're going to come in here and then here's where the planet is and we're going to circle around and that sort of stuff. So I think you could do that and it would feel pretty cool, almost like a football manager or something as you plan out an operation.
So 4X is also another genre that I don't spend a ton of time with, and so I might be missing some of the nuances here, but I wonder if a game like a football manager that's just entirely kind of running the numbers and running the stats and planning out the plays beforehand would sustain throughout an entire kind of space warfare type of game without having maybe even direct control over the ships.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you would want to set up scenarios where, I don't know if it's like a Reigns type of this or that, but I could imagine little pieces of each game being spliced together here. So going for Reigns in terms of politics and decision making, and then sprinkling in some slower like RTS like combat for the fighter view and the ship view. And then, having the resource economy management stuff. Maybe that lets you dive into, almost XCOM, like see the side cutout view or like this War of Mine view of the ships and actually dial in and see how the people are getting along and that sort of thing.
Interesting. We're at our 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and give that one a name.
The planet that they are originally from is called Caprica. So I wonder if we do like Battlestar Caprica Outcasts or something like that. It feels like it should have like a grand sounding name.
That works well. I kind of like that. I was thinking of later in the show, if this fell into our final section, which I don't know how it would, but we could call it Battlestar Redactica. But I think that Caprica Outcast sounds like a suitable name.
Something and if you wanted to make it really unpredictable, you could actually have it set on a different Battlestar other than Galactica. And
are those things? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Those are their big ships.
I just assumed that was just like,
I know. I thought that's
like Star Wars in a galaxy.
Right. No, yeah. They call their big ships Battlestars.
That's pretty cool. Got to give it to them.
Yeah.
They did
name.
a good job there. All right. My pitch for the day is inspired by the Snyder Cut of Justice League.
Oh man, okay, I can't wait.
So I was actually like really fascinated by the scenes with the Flash, and I think we might have even talked about it on Playwright before, but like especially the scene where we are introduced to the Flash, where he's, I guess, saving a young woman from a car wreck or something like that.
Yeah.
But because
such a good scene.
He's moving so fast, it's like the rest of the world is essentially moving in like extremely slow motion, might as well be paused. And so I was wondering if there's something that we can do to do sort of an ultra slow motion. Maybe it's kind of performing daily, everyday tasks. Have we pitched this exact thing before? It sounds very familiar the more that I speak. Even if we have.
If anything, we could take the angle of playing as the Flash potentially.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm just interested in like maybe even a VR experience, because another thing that I was interested in is that like he has such like a gentle touch when he's in the slow motion mode, because presumably if he even, if he haphazardly grabs something like he would in regular motion, then, if he were to grab somebody's hand, even rather gingerly, he would break all of their bones because he's moving at like the speed of light. It'd be like getting shot with a bullet the size of a human. And so, I think there's a lot to consider as far as like being careful and, but I just kind of want a VR experience where you are in extremely slow motion, guiding scenes to resolve in positive ways. So I'm going to go ahead and start the clock there.
I think Yeah, I don't know if we've pitched something exactly like this before, but the idea of it almost would feel like something between super hot VR, I imagine, and gosh, there was a really great space game I had played in VR that I forget the name of.
The Lone Echo, maybe?
There you go. I can always count on you to know the name of the game. Yeah, so Lone Echo, I loved the zero-G sequences in Lone Echo and that feeling of, bumping into something and it really kind of ricocheting around at zero gravity. And I imagine this would, that flash scene would give you vibes of that.
I think what I am most interested in exploring is what it means to move slowly and carefully in VR. Like I get there are a lot of VR games that do require like a fair amount of precision and kind of careful planning, but I think most VR games really want to kind of get you moving and swinging your arms around and enjoying the kind of the kinetic thrill of it all, whereas like something that feels very precise and fine motor is probably better suited to that than any other kind of motion control method due to its one-to-one accuracy.
You'd really need the hand grippies and like the finger pointing potentially to, like the Flash does, guide the hot dog into his pocket. What I think is interesting is, in your mind, this almost sounds like it is a puzzle game to me. It's like, here's something awful happening. Maybe there's a number of potential solutions to it. You could almost play it like a Hitman level where you go and you're like, well, you could, yank the steering wheel of the car and get it to fly out of the way. You could, gently place the person who's going to get hit outside of the realm of danger. You could put something in the road that would stop. Well, theoretically, if you wanted to stop the car in its tracks, you then have to solve the secondary problem of how do you keep the driver safe now.
I think another interesting thing with VR is it suffers from a lack of primary feedback, which I think obviously is a problem that is going to be like impossible to fully solve. Like obviously we're not going to ever feel like we're picking up a box when we're picking up a box in VR, and it's difficult to communicate the weight of anything because we can move our arms, and so it's like everything in VR feels weightless. And so instead of shying away from that, we like really lean into it. The Flash could pick up an entire car or at least kind of guide it in motion effortlessly. But if you move your hand too fast, then maybe, the body of the car starts to crumple because, it's being hit with something at a intense velocity.
Yeah.
And so, just really being careful and just kind of like giving it minor kind of guides and nudges along the way would be such like a fascinating and interesting perspective to take.
It's so strange because the Flash, he didn't get his own Zack Snyder movie, right? But I always did feel that, the kind of lighthearted nature of the character, it would be great to spend a whole movie with him, and the way that we got, I don't know, insert any more quirky Marvel character X, Y, or Z. I know some people love the Flash TV show. Yeah, you'd have to imagine like the first time he becomes the Flash, he's not quite great at wrestling with these things. In the same way that Superman maybe accidentally laser eyes some things as he's getting going as a kid. I think the Flash becomes someone who, is realizing his power as he goes along. And so, I not to be too comedic, but I do think that the character does lend himself to being a little, I don't know, funny, lighthearted with making mistakes or, hearing some dialogue come in when you really kind of flub things up for yourself or make things a little harder.
Yeah. So, a lot of puzzle games are very prescriptive in the solutions that they require. And I think to kind of stay with the lighthearted nature, maybe things kind of ramp up as the game goes on, but to stay with the lighthearted nature, it'd be nice if you could kind of allow some elbow room as far as, mistakes being made. So if the designers kind of account for the mistakes that gamers typically make, and then all of a sudden you're kind of solving a secondary puzzle because you messed up the first one instead of having to kind of automatically restart from the beginning. And then at the end, you're kind of judged on the amount of damage that you've done. And maybe it's a difference between like a 1 and a 5-star rating.
It almost gets like Burnout Crash Mode vibes a little bit, but like you're on foot in the middle of it all. One of the things that comes to mind in terms of a mechanic to layer in here is VR also has that kind of, some people would, I guess, maybe say unfortunate, but the teleport kind of movement. And I do think that it'd not only be in fiction, but kind of fun to say, well, you can dash teleport like down the street, you're just moving at the speed of light or whatever, and then actually like pick up objects from all around the area, as long as it's reasonably adjacent and things aren't totally frozen. If they're moving in some, maybe you got 10 minutes to put the whole thing together or something like that, you could kind of jump all around and find like, oh, if I just go back and forth to this toy store 1,000 times, I can get, not at whatever, 20 times, I can go just stuff a bunch of giant teddy bears in the middle of this and make them an airbag or something so that this person doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, that's fun as well. Using objects in the environment, not knowing where crime or misfortune is going to strike, and being in especially urban environments are so kind of cluttered with all sorts of different things around you that you really have to kind of get improvisational. And then as you're moving that fast, the laws of physics are different than you might expect them to be. Maybe you can create glass by stirring up a bunch of sand or dirt or something like that. Maybe you can
superheat things.
Yeah, you can create plasma. You can I don't know what purpose everything would serve, but like if physics did become a little bit more of like a plaything, giving these kind of non-traditional solutions to puzzles.
I wonder if you also incorporate, like, if you can figure out like a circular perimeter to kind of jog around, you'll get a little bit of like a Forza Motorsport rewind feature of like, well, I need to actually run in some circles and actually turn back time a little bit, or place yourself further back in time rather, not necessarily reversing time.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the idea that moving too fast can send you backwards in time. Maybe that's almost like a retry mechanic that you can utilize yourself by, I guess, swinging your controllers extra fast. Or moving around in real space, safely if you're at like a room scale environment. But, maybe it's kind of a punishment if you're trying to continue with a puzzle and you just get overeager. But if it could be a nice rewind mechanic when things get a little bit too tough.
I'm trying to think about some of the other things. Because I think one of the things that's great in VR is when they do have, I'm thinking about Job Simulator and these types of tinkering things. And I think that each of these environments or these contained little spaces, if they're rich with interactions of, being able to turn on a radio or something and just enjoy it for yourself, or all these sorts of little, I don't know how the radio would play at the speed that you're going, but I do like the idea of, for Barry Allen, a moment can be an eternity. And so what do you do when you can turn any moment into an eternity?
That's enough time on that one. Let's shut it down and give it a name. I mean, Flashpoint is kind of the obvious choice here, especially if we're leading right into the IP.
Is Flashpoint not? I feel like that is a VR game already. Am I wrong about that?
Is it? I don't know.
I'm going to have to Google it. Hold on. Flashpoint VR.
There's an Operation Flashpoint.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, Operation, which is the one where you're in a like a boat or something, right? A canoe.
That I think is something different. I know what you're talking about, though. I don't remember what that one's called, but we can change the name.
As long as it's not Operation Flashpoint, you're good to go.
Which is too bad because I do want to sell like a DLC where you perform operations in slow motion. So we're going to have to, get creative. All right, let's go to our community and see what you all have for us today. This is a email that we received that comes from Matt Parker, who says, could we get a game set in a nursing home? This pandemic has actually, didn't we talk about this recently? I think this was a post 10-minute edition, like at the point at which we were like discussing names or something like that, or maybe it came up last week.
I think so.
Could we get a game set in a nursing home? The pandemic has made me think more about how we treat our senior citizens, and I can't think of any game that deals with old age. I'm thinking it could be similar to Theme Hospital plus The Sims, where you need to help the residents enjoy themselves and keep them healthy. Throw in plenty of internal drama, disagreements, and romances, and I think you'd have a pretty fun sim game full of plates to spin. All right, started the clock.
Here are some things. I don't know why I know them. I guess the media has made sure that I know them. Number one, there was something on John Oliver in the past couple of weeks where someone in a nursing home was eaten by an alligator because they just had in Florida, big surprise, Florida. I guess there was just like a pond outside. And so a patient that, had some dementia kind of just went out in the middle of the night and, alligator food the next day. So there is kind of, it's hard, like with the way America treats senior living, you could go everything from theme hospital, fun, comedic thing to, gosh, you could make it a horror game.
Yeah, so I kind of like this combination between Theme Hospital and The Sims. I've been playing a lot of, what is it called? 2 Point Hospital. And I think it's interesting. Like, I like opening up all the different rooms and kind of responding to patient needs and making sure that my hospital's equipped to handle all of the patients that are coming in and the various illnesses that they have, hiring doctors, managing the load of everything, and kind of creating this balance, a good balanced hospital as they go. But patients they're funny. You can watch them individually and watch them, go to their primary care physician to get diagnosed, and they usually have something very silly about them, like they're made of cardboard or their head's made out of a light bulb or something. And then they go to the appropriate treatment wing, and you can watch some sort of funny animation play while they're getting healed. And then they go home. And each of them does have this kind of story, but they're not individuals, and they're always kind of in, then they're out.
More of a Scrubs
something that's
than an ER.
Yeah, so something that's like the Sims, where you aren't receiving kind of a constant flow of patients. You have like a set group. It's almost like a sitcom, It's like Golden Girls. You have like a group of however many that just kind of live in this home, like Animal Crossing, I guess, and maybe some come and some go over like long stretches of time, but like they're not like faceless customers, you do get to know them. They each have personalities. They have wants and needs and romances and relationships. That's exciting. I don't know if I've seen a management game that goes to that level of depth with like individualizing the customers without making them directly controllable like The Sims would.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea too of, so many games are try to find like, how are we going to expand the gameplay or like keep a long tail of a game going? And one of the things I think of naturally here is if you allow players to kind of choose from a cast of, 10 different seniors, or 20 different seniors, and you got to choose 10, something like that. But you have to choose some small subset of seniors. It's a reasonably small place, enough that you could, manage it like a Sims house. You could essentially have expansion packs be like, hey, we've designed this, new senior. And this one is, this one is a war veteran. And so he's going to come in and have, if you pair him with any one of these others, you're going to get kind of crazy dynamics. Or you take a senior who's maybe loves to gamble, and that's the senior that kind of creates a card and dice game atmosphere in the senior center, and the seniors are trading their teeth and stuff for money and all of that nonsense.
You know what's I think back to The Simpsons as well, and obviously they kind of, most of the time they're kind of laughing at the senior citizens instead of with them. There's a very contentious relationship between Abe Simpson and Marge's mother and everyone else who is kind of a senior citizen on that show. But every once in a while, when they give Abe one of his own stories and really kind of like follow him through his experiences and let him have relationships with other characters. Like there's I don't know, there's a lot of, like, it can be very interesting. And I think there's this idea that they're carrying forward aspects of their, previous life as well. And it would be such an interesting move to be able to discover things about these citizens' past without directly experiencing it. Maybe there are memory scenes, like almost like a Return to the Obra Dinn type of scene where you get glimpses and moments, even in kind of Obra Dinn style freeze frames.
This is something I feel like we have pitched
as you go. Actually, oh my gosh, this does sound very familiar. I think this is one of yours. Yeah.
No, but you're right. And what I think is cool about adding the like Sims-esque simulation layer to it, you can, as an orderly, let's say mostly you're adminning the orderlies or whatever, you can befriend, one of the patients, or like some patients are naturally going to gravitate towards whatever type of style you have. So maybe you're designing. You can't design the seniors, it's very, very much like a real senior center. You get who you get, but you can kind of like build you, and you can be like, okay, I'm going to be strict, and I'm going to be, maybe somebody who is a little bit more flippant when it comes to patient needs, or I'm going to be a real caregiver and a nurturing person. And so depending on how you design your character, you're going to develop friendships and stuff with different, patients who live there. I think that, makes a nice thing, because now you're playing with the levers of what type of character am I going to be? And maybe you can shape it post the start. You end up getting along well with someone else. So you have the levers of what kind of character am I going to be, or my staff is going to be, and what sorts of seniors are going to come into the home. Kind of see it play out, just, I think if you can create a Sims, but unlike the Sims, you might actually have, well, I don't want to say this of all Sims players, but I imagine you would have a stronger emotional reaction to when a patient eventually passes away.
There's a business management sim on top of this as well. And maybe kind of the best way to get rich is to run one of these like ultra exploitative, like unethical retirement centers. And so you're kind of balancing this. Yeah, you're balancing your love for the characters versus essentially kind of the wellness of the institution economically, which might be an interesting, I don't want, I want people to feel bad if they go for the lucrative option, because, people shouldn't be treated that way. But I want it to be kind of a constant struggle that people are always thinking about, at least.
Yeah, some people like the Renegade run in Mass Effect, and they want to punch the reporter or whatever, that sort of stuff.
We brought up the example of Frostpunk earlier, which is a game that does a good job of kind of weighing negative moral options against like things that will naturally make you feel bad but are good for your economic well-being.
Right. And some of these games are just like, hey, are you going to eat people? when it comes down to it.
And, I see people make those negative moral choices, but I've never seen anyone like delight in them before. Whereas like in Mass Effect, like I think there's a certain amount of joy that you can take in like just punching somebody out in a situation, I
think you also get there is something performative, I feel like, about modern nursing homes too, where it's like, are you going to set up a bingo night? Are you going to set up a dance? Another thing I know about senior centers is they have bad problems with sexually transmitted diseases, which is, there's our romance angles could cause real problems for the administrative staff inside of these places. So, and I think about like, hey, sometimes you're going to get a call from a relative who is going to be like, I'm coming to visit my parents today. Like, could you have them ready or whatever? Sometimes you're going to get no notice and they're just going to show up. And sometimes maybe you'll get like, you can learn, oh, somebody comes every Friday or whatever to check on Walter. That seems like a good old person name. And so I think there's also this aspect of like, are you keeping things well enough running and people happy enough in the times where, their family is going to show up and really scrutinize how you're treating their loved one? What is going to be the report to the family that week?
And that's all the time we have on that one. Let's close it down and give it a name.
2 Point Hospital. We've got The Sims.
Something like Elderly Acres or Geriatric Park or something like that would be funny.
That is much better because my brain went to a very cruel The Sags. I don't think that's very.
It's kind of like when EA published The Herbs, Sims in the City.
What did you call it? Like Sunny Living or Sunnyside?
Elderly Acres or a Geriatric Park.
Geriatric Park is, I think it's a made joke, but it's very good. The only thing I can think of is, Nick, do you want to add Tycoon in there somewhere?
They have Jurassic World Evolution. Geriatric Park Evolution would be a funny title, but I don't think it would evoke anything that has to do with the actual game itself.
Yeah, I think if you do Geriatric Park, then you're setting yourself up for being able to deliver after the millions of, we're going to sell gangbusters in this. So after that, we can finally do Geriatric World, which was the real project all along.
All right. Well, that one came from Matt Parker, who submitted through our website at playwrightcast.com/pitch, where you can go as well if you have a video game pitch of your own, or you can email us playwrightcast@gmail.com or tweet us at playwrightcast.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. And when you're listening to things, why don't you go listen to Kane and Rince, The Sausage Factory, the very last, for now, episode of Sound of Play. It's such a sad, why are we setting up such a sad couple months for Kane and Rince here?
I know, literally killing off half of the podcasts on the network.
Oh my gosh. I'm so interested to find out what the future holds.
Yeah, me too. I don't know what's coming up, but hopefully it'll be exciting and fresh and new. Let's get to our redacted game. I believe that you will be challenging me today.
Our redacted game this week. A darkness is gathering in the sprawling port town of Redacted. Members of the deteriorating city have been found dead. People fear leaving home, and rumors abound of a redacted civil war brewing beneath the streets of the city. The player, down on his luck and carrying little other than a sword strapped to his back, it's interesting that it's the player's gendered, comes fresh to the town and becomes all that stands in the way of the greatest threat ever to strike Redacted and the Redacted. Redacted.
So it's a port town?
It's a port town, later described as a city, maybe Port City.
And you're primarily wearing a sword on your back.
Mm-hmm.
This seems very specific.
It is. And you know what? There's something to the fact that the term in this description is the player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like a lot of things would refer to protagonist like that.
Is this The Witcher 3?
It is not, but it's man, The Witcher 3 doesn't happen without this.
Wait, is this?
It's not The Witcher 2
earlier Witcher game.
The Witcher series does not happen without this.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Okay, so I'm getting the sense that this is an early-ish RPG. Gosh, this feels like could be so many different types of games. I'm trying to run through in my mind like the RPGs and the CRPGs that I know.
Yes, that is exactly what you should be doing.
Like this definitely isn't Planescape Torment. There's a possibility of it being Dragon Age Inquisition, or not Inquisition, Origins.
Well, let me give you, because you had one guess, right? So I think if we do the metadata and then the reviews, we'll get some stuff. All right, this is the number 20 best PS2 game of 2001. The number 19 most discussed PS2 game of 2001, and the number 16 most shared PS2 game of 2001, though it is not a PS2 exclusive.
Multi-platform RPG Port Town. Port Town. Trying to think about the Final Fantasies. So Final Fantasy VII was PS1 game, so it doesn't even matter. But like, it wasn't set in a Port Town. Final Fantasy X is a PS2 game. But that one's more of like a world-spanning adventure. I think you spent part of your time in a Port Town, but that wasn't like the setting of the game.
Yeah.
And I also wouldn't say that any Japanese RPG directly led to The Witcher existing either. Feel like it almost has to be like within that kind of Euro jank scene.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of other examples of prominent
I don't know about
RPGs
Euro.
within that era.
I don't know about Eurojank, but
all right, I'll throw out a second guess just to kind of get some momentum going. 2001 though. Let's see, what was BioWare doing back then? Did they even exist back then?
I don't know, but 2001 strikes me as that's a pretty early PS2.
Very early.
Right? So this probably it's not quite one of those.
Very early PS2, because 2001, like, games are still being made on the N64. I feel like if it was Phantasy Star, then you would be reading a Dreamcast review and not a PlayStation review. What else?
I'd say that's a safe bet.
This is decidedly not Kingdom Hearts, because there would be far more interesting things to mention.
Yeah, and probably way more proper nouns to redact.
Yep. Okay, just to get some momentum going.
Join Redacted, the magical mouse.
Is this a part of the Risen series? Is that a thing? Those pirate RPGs?
I know what you're talking about. It is not that. It's not that. Game's pretty well regarded. It's got an 87 Metascore and an 8.4 user score. Let's see if I can redact this 10 review in real time. This is a game that sets the standards for RPGs on the PlayStation 2. Why? It is the first RPG on the PlayStation 2. Every PS2 RPG to come after it has some resemblance. Though minimal at some point, they do bear resemblance. While it may bear more resemblance, this is convoluted, to an action-adventure game, it is still an RPG at its core. Being played out in chapters, a redacted level up system, and incredible graphics engine. What is not to love about this RPG? A 2 is the lowest on the first page here. Nice game, except for some of the level design. Whoever thought that the redacted level 2 was a good idea was a jerk. Dying 50 plus times until you get a lucky sequence of redacted is the worst game experience I have ever had.
All right, so we're thinking like action RPG, potentially the first RPG on the PlayStation 2.
Potentially, right. Cannot verify my source on this.
I don't know why I'm blanking so hard on RPGs in 2001. Should be a real sweet spot.
Is this your last? This is your last guess, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you one last hint.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Do you want to go before this hint? It's up to you.
I mean, not if it's my last one.
Okay. All right. You give me one, and then I'll give you one more hint.
Okay.
We're generous.
Is this a Kingsfield game?
It is not a Kingsfield game. I think you're going maybe ever so slightly niche when that is not necessary.
I know, it's just like nothing's coming to mind where it should be.
Fair enough. Okay, so here is your big hint. There's a good percentage chance that this is a game you and I will be able to enjoy once more. Or we will, how about this? We will be enjoying it once more soon.
Okay, let's see. Be enjoying it once more soon. Oh gosh. This feels like you're really pointing me in a very specific direction, and I'm still not picking up on it.
I know.
I've been there, honestly.
The redacted games. It's hard.
All right, so I'm trying to think of like games that have confirmed remasters. Obviously, Mass Effect, but this is way too early for that. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles does, but this doesn't. That's not an action RPG. Early action RPG would be like within the Chrono series, but that never had a PS2 entry. Good action RPG. No. Demon's Souls recently had a remake, but that is too early. It's definitely not 2001.
Hear me out on this. I think that action RPGs did not look like PlayStation games at this point. Like PlayStation action RPGs now, I feel like are mostly thought of as behind the character. And that is not this era of RPG.
I'm enjoying this, like racking my brain. And on one hand, I don't want to end it,
right.
but I also feel a responsibility to the listeners to not extend this any longer than it needs to be. How about, and you'll have to excuse me if I just kind of wildly flail within the series instead of naming one in specific. No, that doesn't work because that was all the Mana games were on Super Nintendo.
Oh,
that doesn't work either.
This is good though. You've really you've carpet bombed the RPG space in many ways here. All right, I'm calling it. I'm calling it on you.
Just
I finally stumped
give
you.
me one more guess. Like let me make a fool of myself and call out. Well, let's see. Okay, there's no impending remaster, but how about Neverwinter Nights?
Oh my God, dude. You've literally pulled up alongside this game, but you have not touched it. It was announced today that we would, by surprise, be getting a re-release of Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance.
Okay, all right.
Neverwinter Nights, man. Oh, you got right there.
It's very close, yeah.
And this description is, there was almost nothing to redact. It's so generic RPG. A darkness is gathering in the sprawling port town of Baldur's Gate. Members of the deteriorating city are found dead. People fear leaving their home, and rumors abound of a thieves guild, which maybe I could have not redacted, and still that would have been tough. Civil war brewing beneath the streets of the city. The player, down on his luck, carrying little other than a sword strapped to his back, comes to the fresh town and becomes all that stands in the way of the greatest threat ever to strike Baldur's Gate and the Sword Coast.
Very nice. Well, fair play, entirely fair play. Baldur's Gate is a series that I have zero experience with, and it's one of those where it's not easy to catch up later. Anyone can go back to Mario 64 and play it or watch a Let's Play or something and get the gist of it. But I feel like Baldur's Gate, because CRPGs have changed so much since then, it would be really difficult to revisit in that specific, it'd be difficult to revisit as a modern playthrough. And it would be difficult to watch a Let's Play of it because of how kind of text heavy those games tend to be. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I'll have to track down that, announcement that came out today. I saw something about it, but I didn't look too closely into it. But entirely fair play. I'm looking forward to getting into Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah,
3
maybe it's just called Baldur's Gate all over again or something like that.
Well, the one that the developers of Divinity Original Sin put out. Yeah, so they have Baldur's Gate currently in early access. I think it's 3. And that's looking really good. But I'm nervous about starting a CRPG before the game is finished because those games are huge time sinks, and I don't want to have to start over at any point in my adventure.
Yeah, it turns out. I guess I maybe just being at IGN, I'm getting all of this crazy news. But yeah, I guess earlier today, this morning, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance announced for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. Yeah, it looks old as hell. I don't know how well it's going to sell, but maybe my friends over at Game Pass will get this deal done, and we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. I don't know one way or the other. So anyways, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you again next week.
Bye.